If you have ever walked out of an interview thinking, my interview actually went well, so why didn't I get selected? This video is probably going to answer that question. Because most business analyst candidates don't get rejected because they lack knowledge. They get rejected because of how they answer. And the worst part, most candidates don't even realize the mistake they are making. Sometimes it's one weak sentence, sometimes it sounds too generic, sometimes it's giving textbook answers. And interviewers notice it immediately. So in this video, I'm not just giving you interview questions. I'm showing you what weak candidates say, what interviewers actually think, and how strong candidates answer differently. This is part 4 of the series. And if you haven't watched the earlier parts, go through them because each video builds your interview thinking step by step. Let's get into it. Tell me about yourself. Don't take this lightly. Now, this is probably the most important interview question, and most candidates destroy the interview in the first 2 minutes. What interviewer is testing? They are not testing your life story. They are testing communication, confidence, relevance, and structure. And they are deciding very quickly whether you sound professional or not. Common mistakes. Most candidates start from college life, talk too much, give irrelevant information, and they sound memorized. And some candidates speak for 5 minutes without saying anything impactful. Here's how wrong example looks like. My name is XYZ. I completed my graduation in 2022. My hobbies are dancing and music, and I'm very hardworking. This sounds generic. No impact, no BA relevance. Here's how a strong answer sounds like. I am currently working or doing my internship as a business analyst with experience in requirement gathering, stakeholder communication, and agile projects. I enjoy solving business problems and working closely with teams to deliver solutions that create business value. Here's a pro tip. Your introduction should sound like who you are, what you do, what value you bring on the table, not your autobiography. Why do you want to become a business analyst? This question looks very simple, but interviewers can instantly tell whether your answer is genuine or copied from the internet. What they are testing? They are checking your motivation, career clarity, and whether you actually understand the role. Because if your reason is weak, interviewers assume your commitment will also be weak. Common mistakes done. I like communication. BA has good salary. Generic passion statements. Here's how your strong answer should look like. I enjoy analyzing problems, understand business needs, and collaborating with teams to create solutions. Business analysis combines communication, problem solving, and analytical thinking, which aligns strongly with my interest and strengths. Here's a pro tip. Always connect skills, interest, and your business value. That creates a strong answer. What would you do if a stakeholder keeps changing requirements? Now, this is a real project problem, and interviewers ask this to see whether you panic under pressure. What they are testing? Change handling, your communication, project control, and professional maturity. Common mistakes done. I'll ask them to stop changing requirements. I'll directly reject changes. That sounds immature. Here's how your strong answer should look like. I would first understand the reason for the change, perform impact analysis, discuss implications with stakeholders, and follow the change management process before implementation. Make it real, because in real projects, requirements will change. Your job is not to stop changes. Your job is to manage them properly. What if stakeholders disagree with each other? This is where many business analysts struggle because now you're not managing requirements, you're managing people. What they are testing here? Conflict handling, communication, and decision alignment. Common mistakes done: choosing one side immediately, arguing emotionally, and escalating too quickly. Your strong answer should be I would understand each stakeholder's perspective, identify business priorities, and facilitate discussion to reach alignment based on business value and project goals. Here's a pro tip. Interviewers love hearing the word alignment because that is the core BA skill. Next, what if requirements are misunderstood after development starts? This happens more often than candidates think, and this question tests ownership. What they are testing here? Your responsibility, communication, and problem solving skills. Common mistakes done: blaming developers or saying they misunderstood. This is your weak answer. Let's see how you can answer strongly. I would immediately clarify the requirements, assess impact, collaborate with the development team, and ensure alignment through walkthroughs and updated documentation. Here's a pro tip. A strong BA focuses on solution, not blame. Now notice something important. The strong answers are not complicated. The difference is clarity, ownership, business thinking, professionalism. That is exactly what interviewers notice. Let's continue. How do you handle pressure in projects? Now let's talk about something every business analyst faces sooner or later. Pressure. Tight deadlines, stakeholders asking for updates every hour, developers waiting for clarification, testers escalating defects, and suddenly everybody expects answer from you. Now interviewers ask this question because they want to know, do you stay structured under pressure or do you panic when projects become chaotic? And honestly, this question reveals maturity very quickly. What interviewer is actually testing? They are testing prioritization, communication, emotional control, problem solving, professionalism under stress. Because real projects are never calm all the time. Pressure situations happen constantly. And companies want business analysts who can stabilize situation, not add more chaos. Common mistakes. Now, most candidates answer this very weakly. They say, I can work under pressure or I stay calm. But honestly, those answers sounds generic. Anybody can say that. Interviewers want to understand how you handle pressure professionally. Here's the strong answer. I handle pressure by prioritizing tasks, maintaining clear communication, and focusing on critical deliverables while staying solution oriented and organized. Now, notice why this answer sounds stronger? Because it explains structure, prioritization, communication, and professionalism. Let's make this realistic. Imagine UAT starts tomorrow. Defects are still open. Stakeholders want status update. Developers need requirement clarification. Now weak candidates become reactive here. They panic, they overpromise, they communicate emotionally. But strong business analysts become more structured under pressure. That means prioritize high impact issues, communicating early, managing expectations, keeping teams aligned. And interviewers love hearing that mindset. Here's a pro tip: never answer pressure questions emotionally. Always sound calm, structured, solution focused. That instantly makes you sound more experienced. Now, pressure becomes even more difficult when deadlines themselves are unrealistic. What if project deadline is unrealistic? Now, this is one of the most common real world project problem. And if you have worked in projects before, you already know this happens constantly. What interviewer is testing? Interviewers are checking expectation management, prioritization, communication maturity, and project awareness. Because unrealistic deadlines can destroy project quality very quickly. Common mistakes done. Now, weak candidates usually answer emotionally. They say, I'll work extra hours or I'll somehow manage. Now, while that sounds hardworking, it doesn't sound strategic. Interviewers are looking for business thinking, not panic responses. Here's a strong answer. I would analyze priorities, identify critical deliverables, discuss risk with stakeholders, and align expectations realistically while focusing on high business value items first. Now that sounds professional because instead of blindly accepting pressure, you are managing it intelligently. Because let's be honest, you cannot magically create more time in projects. So the real skill becomes managing scope, prioritizing features, communicating risk, aligning stakeholders realistically. And honestly, interviewers love hearing prioritization language. Here's a pro tip: use words like priorities, risk, business value, expectation alignment. These words immediately make your answer sound stronger. Now imagine this situation. After months of work, users suddenly reject the solution. What if user rejects the solution during UAT? Now this is stressful because after months of development, imagine users saying, this is not what we wanted. Or yes, this happens in real projects more often than people think. What interviewer is testing here? They are testing ownership, stakeholder handling, emotional maturity, problem solving. Because weak candidates become defensive here. Strong candidates become solution focused. Common mistakes. Some candidates answer like this. I'll explain this to user. Developers needs to fix it. Testing missed it. Now listen carefully. Blaming others never sounds good in interviews. Here's a strong answer. I would first understand user concerns, identify gaps between expectations and delivered functionality, assess impact, and collaborate with teams to resolve issues efficiently. Now that sounds mature because you're focusing on resolution, not blame. And honestly, sometimes the issue is not technical. Sometimes the issue is expectation mismatch, which is why requirement validation and communication matters so much throughout the project. Here's a pro tip. Strong business analysts don't panic during escalations. They stabilize situations. That's exactly the energy your answer should give. What if requirements are missing during testing? Now, this situation can become very dangerous in projects because when testing starts and suddenly requirements are unclear or missing, timelines gets impacted immediately. What interviewer is testing? Interviewers are checking attention to details, ownership, communication, problem solving ability. Common mistakes. Weak candidates usually say, I'll update the document. Too weak, too incomplete. Here's a strong answer. I would immediately analyze the missing requirements, discuss with stakeholders for clarification, assess testing impacts, and update documentation to ensure alignment across teams. Now, this answer sounds structured and responsible. Because in real projects, one missing requirement can create defects, rework, delays, stakeholder frustration, which is why strong business analyst focuses heavily on validation and traceability. How do you build trust with stakeholders? Now, this question is extremely important because business analyst is not only about documents, it's about relationship. And honestly, if stakeholders don't trust you, projects become very difficult. What interviewer is testing here? They're checking communication maturity, professionalism, stakeholder management, relationship building skills. Here are the common mistakes. Weak answer sounds generic, like I communicate properly. That's not enough. Here's a strong answer. I build trust by maintaining transparency, communicating consistently, understanding stakeholder concern, and ensuring commitments are followed through professionally. Now that sounds mature. Trust in project is built through clarity, consistency, and accountability, not through impressive vocabulary. Stakeholders trust business analysts who listen properly, communicate honestly, and manage expectations clearly. What if developers push back on requirements? Now, this is real project situation because sometimes developers say this requirement is too complex. This will take too much effort. This will not technically be feasible. So, interviewers want to know how do you respond professionally. Here are the common mistakes. Weak candidates become defensive or they immediately support one side. That creates conflict. Here's a strong answer. I would understand the technical concern, discuss possible alternatives, evaluate business impact, and collaborate with stakeholders and developers to find the most practical solution. Now that sounds collaborative. Here's a pro tip. Never sound like business versus developer. Strong business analysts create alignment between teams. How do you handle difficult stakeholders? Now let's be honest. Every project has difficult stakeholders. Some are aggressive, some constantly escalate, some change requirements repeatedly. And interviewers ask this question because they want to know, can you stay professional under pressure? Here's a strong answer. I handle difficult stakeholders by listening actively, understanding their concerns, communicating calmly, and focusing discussion on project goals and business value. Now notice the tone of this answer. Calm, professional, structured. Here's a pro tip. Interviewers love candidates who sound emotionally stable, never sound reactive. What would you do if project scope is unclear? Now, unclear scope creates chaos very quickly because when scope is vague, team starts making assumptions, and assumptions are dangerous in project. Here's a strong answer. I would conduct stakeholder discussions, define boundaries clearly, validate expectations, and document scope to ensure alignment before execution. That answer sounds structured and proactive. How do you manage communication gaps? Communication gaps are one of the biggest reasons project fails. Not technology, communication. Here's a strong answer. I manage communication gaps through regular updates, clear documentation, stakeholder meetings, and ensuring information is shared approximately across team. What makes a good business analyst? Now, this question sounds simple, but interviewers are actually asking, do you understand what this role really requires? Here's a strong answer. A good business analyst combines communication, analytical thinking, stakeholder management, problem solving, and business understanding to deliver valuable solutions effectively. That answer sounds complete. And honestly, the best business analysts are not just document writers. They are problem solvers, communicators, relationship builders, decision facilitators. And that is the mindset interviewers are actually looking for. If you are watching these videos and realizing your interview answers sound too generic, that's actually a good sign because now you know what to improve. And if you want real business analyst experience, not just interview theory, check out my Business Analyst Project Series, where I show complete real-world projects step by step. And if you want structured preparation, my Udemy course covers everything from basic to interview preparation. Links are in the description. And if you have genuinely watched till this point, trust me, you're already preparing differently from most candidates. Because now you're not just memorizing answers, you're starting to understand how interviewers actually think. And that's the real difference between sounding prepared and sounding hireable. Now don't stop here. Also comment below which interview questions confuses you the most, because I'm using your comments to create the next part of the series, and trust me, the next videos are going to get even more real, more scenario based, more advanced, more like actual interviews. So stay connected, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next part.